was quite hard at the start, because we were just sort of in the throes of maybe 3-4 months into the relationship when they got signed. Again, I mean, any 17-year-old girl is going to be totally attracted by that rock and roll lifestyle, you know, our husband, our boyfriend, fiance, whatever, writing all these fantastic songs, getting loads of press written about them. You know, it can be very effective. And
it did cause, you know, probably a fairly much 50-50 split within the band. Those that thought being away and experiencing what was going on in the outside world was the most fantastic, wonderful thing ever. And those who were prepared to do it up to a point.
I have bagfuls of letters from John saying how miserable it was, and it wasn't flash hotels and things like that, you know, but horrible for me as well. I didn't like being apart.
Do a tour, and I'd hang on in London for an extra week or two after, whereas the rest of them would just rush to get home again. So I think, and I kind of was more into that kind of rock and roll thing then, you know, getting drunk and stuff as well. And yes, and then of course I did manage to discover girlfriends or girls then as well through the band, because you know, I was useless at pulling, so it was, instead, you know, they would come to me instead of the way around. But it was very mild as well, don't get me wrong. It wasn't mad, it wasn't, you know, Led Zeppelin either, proportions.
Well, I was the oldest, sort of 19, 20, when we were kind of just starting to playing the Casbah and that sort of thing. And the rest of them would have been, Dean was obviously the youngest, about 15. Mickey and Billy were, what, 16, 17. But none of us really had any girlfriends, you know? Like Caroline's the only girlfriend I've ever had, for example.
I vaguely remember once we went to the Ramones concert in Belfast, and John saying he's going to kill me for saying this. He apologised for going on tour because after all he was, you know, in rock and roll now, and he doesn't know what opportunities would arise when he was away. But sort of nice knowing you, Caroline. It lasted all of 2 days, I think, and he was pleading, banging up my door again a couple of days later.
Again, that probably could be, it's in the songs as well too, you know, whereas, you know, if we were a bit more, you know, had a bit more relationships with women and stuff, the songs might have been different too.
I always remember that John, I think I used to work in Wellwards. I worked in Wellwards at the time, and John used to come in, do you want to go to the Top of the Pops in the morning? It was the first time. You know, I was like, what? So we literally, you know, got in a plane the next day. I think we had one bag between us. The band just didn't, I mean, everybody was just totally gobsmacked. It was just so different from anything we'd ever experienced, you know, and getting picked up at the airport, and then the record company people around you, and meeting all the famous people on Top of the Pops, going up to the BBC bar and seeing people there. And then a famous story, I think it was the first time they did Top of the Pops, which restaurant do you want to go to? You know, the world's your oyster, and they chose McDonald's because they'd never been to McDonald's before. Everybody else is going to these fancy French restaurants. We got that eventually.
Number 38, first time in, Undertones and Teenage Kicks.
First time I did Top of the Pops, the next day I was back in Derry delivering TVs for £7 a week. I find it increasingly difficult to kind of sit and try and tell people about what was then rapidly becoming my everyday life in the context of theirs, where even if it was, well, you know, what have you done? Well, we went to London and we did a bit of recording and then did Top of the Pops and came home again. Well, what have you done? Well, I signed on the dole as always, and I'm sitting waiting for me lousy Jerry to come.
Anybody looking at the situation from the outside probably would have expected a rock band coming from that background to be full of anger with ugly sounds and snarling at the world. The peculiar thing about Derry was, I mean, that was the general attitude of young people in the Bogside. So in a way, if you were revolting against the things around you, you sort of revolted against anger in a strange way. And it was an oppositional statement to decide to aim for the mainstream, to get on top of the pops. I mean, what a strange thing, but yet it made sense if you were coming from that context.
I think we always secretly knew we were really good because we had an ambition was to play Top of the Pops. So we obviously, something was going on there in the band and we achieved it. We actually achieved it by going on doing Teenage Kicks. And it was just amazing because it was kind of like a fuck you to people in Derry, people that slagged us in Derry all over the years as well. You know, here we are now. So what are you going to slag us off now?
Wanna hold her tight. Get teenage kicks right through the night. There she goes, I won't see her again. She's gone to school with her best friend. She only does the things she likes to do. Now she wants something new.
You listen to some of the words in the first LP. Some of the lines don't make sense. Even the second LP, Wednesday week, you know, it doesn't make sense. Like even you look at the words of Teenage Kicks, it's like the chemistry of everybody else's song, you know, and obviously with Fergal's unique sort of style of singing as well. Without sounding too pretentious, you know, I try and read all the time, and I loved Jack Kerouac. I loved the whole beat movement, and you know, used to, you know, the whole Jack Kerouac, the whole idea, the first word, best word. I loved that kind of concept. That you just got it out.